Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending the Sacramento Railyards Lagoon Groundwater Public Meeting. Today is November 13, 2024, 6 p.m. I am Tammy Pickens, a public participation specialist for the Department of Toxic Substance Control. A copy of this presentation is located at www.envirostor.dtsc.ca.gov, UP Downtown Sac-Lagoon. The link is located in the chat. Next slide. By participating in this meeting, you understand that this meeting is being recorded. You may be muted for background noise. During the question and comments, we will focus on topics related to today's presentation. We'll do our best to listen and address all comments and questions so that everyone can participate. Thank you for your patience and understanding. Next slide. Purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide information regarding the Sacramento Railyards Lagoon Groundwater Study Area, LGWSA. Receive comments on the Remedial Action Plan, RAP, and answer questions. Presentation materials are available at www.envirostor.dtsc.ca.gov, UP Downtown Sac, Lagoon. The link is located in the chat. Russ Edmondson is our media person for the DTSC at Office of Communication. He's located at russ.edmondson@dtsc.ca.gov. These links are also in the chat. Next slide. Tonight's agenda includes opening remarks, myself, Tammy Pickens, Public Participation Specialist, an overview of the cleanup Chief Sacramento Responsible Party Unit, overview of the Remedial Action Plan for the Sacramento Railyards, LGWSA, Miragolo, the project manager. Questions and answers, Tammy Pickens, and formal public comments. Next slide. Department of Toxic Substance Control Mission. DTSC's mission is to protect California's people, community, and environment from toxic substances, to enhance economic vitality by restoring contaminated land, and to compel manufacturers to make safer consumer products. Ruth Kabayab will begin her presentation. Ruth.
Thank you, Tammy. As mentioned, my name is Ruth Kayabyab, the unit supervisor for the Responsible Party Unit. And as Tammy said, I will be giving an overview of the cleanup process. Next slide. DTSC works on a variety of cleanup sites which follow a standard cleanup process. The process ends when DTSC can ensure the site is safe for its intended use. Discovery occurs through activities such as public complaints and agency referrals. Initial investigations are conducted to determine whether there has been a release of hazardous substances that could pose a threat to human health and/or the environment. If response actions are needed, an oversight mechanism or legal document, such as an order, will be issued. During characterization, investigations are conducted to determine the nature and extent of the contamination. A risk assessment is also conducted to determine the human health and/or ecological risks. Cleanup goals and remedy options are also evaluated. During remedy selection, a document describing the proposed remedy, such as a remedial action plan, is shared with the public for review and comment. The proposed remedy will also be analyzed for potential environmental impacts under California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. This is the stage we're currently at for this project. After the comment period ends, comments received will be reviewed and replied through a responsiveness summary, also called a response to comments. And appropriate revisions will be included prior to approving the remedy document. During implementation, the approved remedy is designed and constructed. The site may be certified when the approved remedy has been fully constructed and completed. In some cases, the approved remedy may take years and will require long-term stewardship, such as a land use covenant for capping of metals in soil at a commercial property, or an operations and maintenance agreement for groundwater monitoring above a solvent plume. Part of long-term stewardship also includes periodic reviews of the remedy to determine if it remains protective and to determine if there is adequate financial assurance to pay for it. Throughout the cleanup process, administrative steps are taken to support public participation, cost recovery, and enforcement. And that concludes the overview of the cleanup process. I will now hand it over to Mara. Next slide.
Thank you, Ruth, and good evening, everyone. My name is Mara Golo, DTSC Project Manager, and I will be providing an overview of the Remedial Action Plan, or RAP, for the Lagoon Groundwater Study Area of the Sacramento Railyards. Next slide, please. The Sacramento Railyards property was previously owned by Southern Pacific Transportation Company, or SPETCO, who merged with Union Pacific Railroad, or UPRR, in 1997. UPRR then sold the property to developer S. Thomas Enterprises of Sacramento, LLC, in 2006. Since then, several additional property transactions have occurred. The owners for areas of the property within the LGWSA currently include Downtown Railyard Venture, LLC, Kaiser Permanente, Sacramento Municipal Utility District, and Sacramento 695 LP. UPRR is the responsible party, or the party responsible for conducting cleanup work, under a 1988 enforceable agreement between DTSC and SPETCO. Next slide, please. The Sacramento Railyards is a 240-acre property located at 501 Jiboom Street in Sacramento, California. It served as a locomotive maintenance and rebuilding facility from the 1860s to the early 1990s. Cleanup has been occurring since 1988. Due to the size of the cleanup and based on historical usage, the property was divided into 8 study areas for soil and 2 study areas for groundwater. Next slide, please. This figure is a map of the site location. Outlined in red are the boundaries of the entire Railyards property located north of downtown Sacramento, and enclosed in green is the Lagoon Groundwater Study Area, which is a subject of this RAP. Next slide, please. The LGWSA is a groundwater plume that is approximately 112 acres. Throughout the presentation, I will refer to LGWSA as the site. The American River's historic main channel once occupied a large portion of the site. After this major channel was redirected to the north, fill material was used to restore the resulting slough. Along the American and Sacramento rivers, marshes were used to regain the remaining portion of the property, resulting in low-lying, level land that was built over several decades. Crude oil storage was the first industrial operation in the northern part of the site, using above-ground tanks up until the 1950s. A number of shops were then constructed, which were used as debris storage until 1968. Finally, an industrial wastewater system was in use at the site from 1946 through 1987. Next slide, please. This figure is a closer look at the site. The lagoon groundwater plume is mostly contained within the property, with a portion extending northeast toward the intersection of North 10th Street and North B Street. You can see the Interstate 5 or I-5 overpass and the Sacramento River to the west. Additional historic surface water features from 1859 are also shown in blue, such as the former American River Channel and the former Willow Lake and former Sutter Lake, both south of the site. The area in green is the former pond and ditch system, and the area in yellow is the former drum storage area. Next slide, please. A series of remedial investigations have been completed within the site throughout the years. The contaminants of concern for groundwater are volatile organic compounds, semi-volatile organic compounds, total petroleum hydrocarbons, and metals. The remedial action objectives for the site mainly include the following: prevent exposure to and migration of contaminants in groundwater, and reduce contamination in groundwater and achieve remedial goals. Next slide, please. The feasibility study evaluated 5 cleanup alternatives to address the contaminants in groundwater at the site. This table shows the cleanup alternatives as the columns 1 through 5 and the components in those alternatives as the rows. These alternatives provided a range of responses, including a no further action alternative, alternative 1, and alternatives that rely on treatment to reduce or eliminate wastes to the extent practical, alternatives 2 through 5. The factors used to compare and select the best option are the level of protectiveness, effectiveness, implementability, and cost. Next slide, please. Based on a detailed and comparative analysis, cleanup alternative 5 was recommended for the site. This alternative includes the following components: implementation of institutional controls, such as a land use covenant, to restrict groundwater use and to require installation of vapor barriers in future buildings if needed, a groundwater monitoring program as required for monitored natural attenuation, in situ chemical oxidation, or ISCO, or in-place injection treatment to reduce concentrations of contaminants at the LGW18 hotspot target area, and groundwater extraction to provide hydraulic control to prevent expansion of the plume. Next slide, please. The proposed project timeline is as follows. Off-site preparatory activities will take approximately 6 months. These include preparing additional design, permitting, and supporting plans and documentation. On-site remedy implementation will take approximately 5 months to complete. These include site preparation, excavation, ISCO full-scale implementation, and groundwater extraction system construction. Post-injection monthly or quarterly monitoring may take up to 12 months, which will be half-day field events. Next slide, please. The City of Sacramento, as lead agency under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, prepared the final Railyards Specific Plan Environmental Impact Report, or FEIR. DTSC is considering the effects described in the city's FEIR and determining if approval of the draft RAP will not result in significant impacts to the environment. DTSC, along with UPRR's consultant, is preparing an addendum to the FEIR as the appropriate document under CEQA. A notice of determination for this addendum to the FEIR will be filed with the California State Clearinghouse with the State of California Office of Planning and Research. Next slide, please. Large equipment such as excavators and backhoes will be used to excavate and stockpile soil. Debris material to be removed for off-site disposal or recycling will be loaded into and dumped trucks or roll-off bins for transport. As such, plans for traffic management, truck safety, and haul routes will be designed to minimize traffic impacts. On-site cleanup activities will take approximately 5 months and will occur between the hours of 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday to Friday, subject to final permit requirements. Waste materials will be transported to a state licensed disposal facility. Next slide, please. Finally, specific safety plans will establish procedures to ensure that remedy implementation is performed in a manner that protects human health and the environment. The following actions will be implemented during the cleanup process to ensure public safety and minimize dust. The staging area will be fenced to restrict access. Waste soil will be containerized for disposal. Water spray will be used to control dust generation, and air will be monitored throughout the cleanup activities. That is the end of my portion of the presentation. I will now pass it back to Tammy Pickens. Tammy?
Thank you, Mira. We are now at the Q&A portion of this presentation. This slide provides an overview of the 3 ways you can ask a question or make a comment. The first will be the Zoom auto. Use the raise hand feature and you will be invited to unmute your auto when it's your turn. The second way is the phone auto. You'll press *9 to join the phone queue, and I will say the last 3 digits of your phone number when it's your turn. Press *6 to unmute your line. The third way, text only. Use the Q&A feature to have your question read. Formal comments will be answered in a response to comment later accompanying the wrap approval. Now let's see if we have any comments. At this time, we do not have any comments or questions for the presentation. Next slide. We are now at the formal comment portion of this presentation. This presentation this is the portion where we'll take your comments without responding. You'll receive a written response in a document called a response to comment. Ruth Kaviab is the hearing officer for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Tammy. As the hearing officer, I will now begin the formal comment period, and we will now accept formal comments.
In order to give formal comments, you can use the Zoom auto, use the raise hand feature, and you'll be invited to unmute your auto when it's your turn. Use the phone auto, press *9 to join the phone queue. The facilitator will say the last 3 digits of your phone number when it's your turn. Press *6 to unmute your line. Text only, use the Q&A feature to have your questions read by the facilitator. Again, formal comments will be answered in a response to comment letter accompanying the wrap approval. Let's see if we have any comments. We
I'm
do
not seeing
not.
any. I guess with no comments, I will now close the formal comment period.
Okay,
Emma?
next slide. Public comment period is October 25, 2024, November 26 to 2024. Please send written comments to Mira Golo, the project manager at DTSC 8800 Cal Center Drive, Sacramento, California 95826, or email mira.golo@dtsc.ca.gov. Documents are also available at the Sacramento Century Library located at 828 I Street, Sacramento, California 95814. And an Envirostor link is www.envirostor.dtsc.ca.gov. UP Sac Lagoon. This information is provided in the chat. Next slide. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting and have a great night.